This one's going to have some ripple effects for the economy, so pay attention. Trucking giant Yellow shuts down operations. The 99-year-old company with 22,000 Teamsters employees advises customers and workers of shutdown. This could be around 30,000 jobs gone, 22,000 union jobs. And you know what? Sad reality. I think they're going to try and move into auto trucking, and they want this to happen. Okay, well, let me slow down. Who is they, though? No, I think financial interests looking at whether or not they want to keep up investment or support physical trucking businesses. A human driver it's probably not. They don't want to do it. We know electric trucking is on the horizon. AI trucking is on the horizon. These will be self-driving freights that charge themselves. They'll pull into a station. I imagine at first it'll be a guy who walks up and plugs in a supercharger, unplugs it, and then it takes off. They could even be gas operated, but they can drive themselves. So you don't need to pay truckers anymore. This is a move that many of the financial interests, these are investors, these are the high-ranking executives of these companies, something they've wanted to happen for some time. But there's also an important lesson in union negotiations, because one of the reasons they say for the collapse of this trucking company is the Teamsters. Negotiations, stagnation, while the company bled money and then imploded. And for that reason, I do want to talk about unions and why I love and hate them. Let me just clarify for you. I love collective bargaining. The workers deserve to be treated fairly and deserve an honest cut of the profits. Genuinely believe so. But here's the big question for all the union members. Do you take a cut of the profits when the profits come in? And do you take a cut of the debt when the debt comes in? Because it makes no sense that you would come here and say, in good times we deserve, and in bad times, F you. And that's where we are. That's the mentality of the modern liberal in the Democratic Party when it comes to unions. They never want to entertain the idea that as employees, being stakeholders means debt all the same. No, only profits, only profits. It reminds me a lot of like feminism. They say women should be able to work. And you're like, okay, sewers right there, honey. You want to do the job that men do? Absolutely, you should be allowed to. But that includes working in the sewers? No. They're only ever talking about the cushy air-conditioned office jobs. Send the men to the petroleum rigs and to the sewers. And that's the same thing with unions. This is what I just don't like. Equal share means the debts and the profits. Now, my view of running a company is if you work for the company and you generate revenue for the company, you're entitled to the large majority of it. The company should recoup what it's spent in investment plus a light premium. But I don't take this view many of these companies have where it's like, you could be making 50% margins per employee. And I'm like, you'd rather give more of that to the person doing the work. That's my view of things. So I kind of imagine that if I ever opened a coffee shop, which is on the way, the people who work there, when we become profitable, they're going to be making a good sum of money. Because I'm not trying to own a chain of coffee shops to be rich. I'm trying to open a chain of coffee shops to change culture and make people's lives better, create good jobs and all that stuff. But however, I understand why corporations exist this way. The reality is that if you do right by your employees in good times, they will thank you for it. When bad times come, they'll say, your fault, your problem. So how do you balance that? Am I, as the employer, supposed to set aside a rainy day fund, take nothing for myself for all the work that I've done, give the profits and benefits to those in good times when the bad times befall me? I'm the one left to suffer. No, I think perhaps the reality is there should be some contractual negotiations in this regard. Let's talk about this. For one, it is shocking. There's some blame, they say, to Donald Trump because they're saying he put in $700 million in COVID rescue. No, I think that's a good thing. Trump was trying to save jobs, and we did this big COVID rescue plan for everybody. Granted, huge mistake across the board in shutting everything down may have destroyed the economy. But I think really this is what they wanted. Seriously. Look at this. Yellow started in 1924 as a tiny taxi and bus operations in Oklahoma City. The Yellow Cab Transit Company ferried locals around in yellow Ford Model Ts. Isn't that crazy? 100 years later, the company's gone. That's kind of crazy. Do they still operate taxis? I feel like they do, don't they? They said they bought another trucking company, and then they've been saddled with debt. They can't pay it off, but The main thing I want to get to in this regard is the unions. They say Yellow's financial woes have mounted this year as declining shipping demands across the freight sector cut into volumes and sent rates falling. Its cash holdings fell to around $100 million in June from $235 million in December. The company made progress on its integration in its western region, then worked to push ahead across the country. Those actions triggered sharp and escalating changes between the Teamsters and the company. The Teamsters said the company needed to renegotiate its multi-year contract, which expires after March 24, to carry out its operating changes. Yellow filed suit on June 27th, accusing the Teamsters of blocking the changes and costing the trucker business. The company said inaction could push Yellow into liquidation. In June, the company sought to defer 2 pension fund payments, putting it $50 million behind its contributions. The Teamsters threatened to strike mid-July if the company didn't make the payment, spooking customers. This is what I want to get to. I'm a big fan of truckers. Truckers are the red blood cells of this nation. Without truckers, you don't get your avocados in winter. You don't get your strawberries in the fall. You want out-of-season fruit? Thank a trucker. In fact, to be completely honest, everything you get, period. Here's the reality of it all. As the red blood cells of this nation, understand this. When you eat, say, like Thai food, do you have any idea the complex degree of ingredients that must come together to craft such a meal? It's crazy, to be completely honest. All of the weird... I can't remember what I was eating. I was eating at like an Indian restaurant. And I looked up the ingredients to like the recipe for some meal. And I was like, yo, this plant grows in Central America. This animal is bred in California. This spice comes from, Southeast Asia. And they ship it all on cargo ships. And then truckers bring it all to your supermarket. And then you're able to live like a king because these people are operating in this way. So I certainly am a big fan of truckers. But you also need to understand this. Regardless of what job you do, if the money ain't there, the money ain't there. I worked for Fusion, ABC Univision joint venture. Most of you know this. After I left, there was talk about unionizing because a bunch of these digital newsrooms were unionizing. I told my friend, I said, here's what you do. Go to your boss right now and say, I want nothing to do with this. I do not want to unionize. Please give me any position in any way that has nothing to do with the unionization effort. I'll tell you why. They're going to fire all of you. Why? If there's no money to pay you, you don't get paid. Really that simple. So when all the employees come to the boss and say, we demand more money, and the boss goes, yeah, there's no money. And they say, well, then we won't work. Well, okay, you're all fired. And guess what happened? They laid off like 300 people. Yeah, I'll give a shout out. As a business owner myself, one thing that people genuinely don't understand is that when you come and ask for a raise, typically what you're saying is, can I have some of your money? Really? Not always, not always. There are certainly circumstances where people are dramatically underpaid and they're producing more in value. But take a look at most businesses that are either falling into the red due to hard times, or you take a look at startup businesses, in this case, Fusion. Fusion gets investment to operate. They're not generating revenue in the black. They're in the red, meaning they may make money, but they're losing and spending more money than they make. You then come and say, I deserve more money. The boss says, look, I'm tracking our revenue right here. We lose $100,000 a month. Y'all want more money? You're going to double our losses and rapidly accelerate our decline. We need to generate more money, then we can pay you more. And they went, no, I deserve it. And I've heard this so many times from these digital newsrooms. They would say things like, if you're trying to invest and build something, we're the ones who are doing the work, so we deserve more money. Okay, well, at a certain point, if you cannot reach that point, your business ceases to exist. And this is what kind of feels like happens here with the Teamsters. The Teamsters are threatening to strike. Customers get spooked, don't want to spend anymore. They're already bleeding money, and then they say, that's it. We surrender. We're done. Already several hundred people have lost their jobs, non-union. And it's likely going to be 30,000. Now, perhaps what may happen to prevent this is the government may intervene and say, too big to fail. We cannot allow 30,000 jobs to leave, to just be gone. Biden certainly doesn't want those numbers, but already the U.S. Treasury owns 30% of this. Look at this. The U.S. Treasury now holds 30% of Yellow shares, which have plunged. Yeah, it ain't going to work. But here's what I was saying early on. It's not so much the fault of anybody who's trying to make a living. That I get. And if you can't work, if you're not making enough money at a company that's losing money, you need to go find another job because your job's short-lived. Do the best you can. But I got to tell you guys, what I see with this, what I see with a lot of it, the powerful interests are thinking, what do we invest in? Do we invest in the guy who's going to demand more money? Or do I just buy a self-driving truck? McDonald's is doing it already. Kiosks have replaced cashiers. Beep, beep, beep. Swipe your card. Someone makes the food. It's happening everywhere. It was all over Europe years ago. I remember going to a fast food restaurant in Europe. They already do this. So where does that bring us? Most of your jobs are at risk. I don't have any good advice for you. I'm not going to sit here and say, learn to code. I'm going to say, I don't know. You've got the writer's strike going on. Bryan Cranston screaming they will not replace our jobs with robots. I found that really funny. The liberal elite screaming, learn to code. At all the coal miners. You can learn to code. Why not? Hey, actors, writers, learn to code. Don't you want to adapt with the technology of the era? If you can't code, then what are you really doing? Boy, the times they are a-changin'. Hey, man, I feel bad for the truckers, dude. I don't want anybody to lose their jobs. I don't even like it when the journalists lose their job. And we make fun of them because they're bad people, typically. Not every journalist. There are good journalists out there. But I mean like these digital woke garbage websites. It is bad when people lose their jobs. We want the economy to do better. Now, when it comes to truckers, it's particularly bad. I want all the truckers to do better. But they're trying to replace truckers with robots. And this is going to make them very happy. Already the wheels are turning, and I'm betting a bunch of big investors are getting ready for robo trucks. We'll see. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. on the channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see y'all then.